I'm Lodi Zworenstein, District Governor of District 6290. It is my distinct honor and privilege to be able to welcome you. District 6290 has had a long history of involvement with water, and we are so pleased that it has taken a significant life, the activities of getting clean water. I am not here to motivate you. You're already motivated by the fact that you're here. I'm not here to praise you up and down because you all know this is very important and you all get satisfaction from it. I'm simply here to thank you for caring. Thank you for being here. You're going to have a fantastic program today. You will learn a lot. You're going to help just by simply bringing the messages back to your clubs and your districts. And with that in mind, welcome, enjoy the facility, enjoy our district. Thank you.
That was, of course, our district governor, His Holiness. It's not often that you get any reverence when you're in this position, and so it's nice that somebody would at least notice. Hi, Lodi. Good to have you here this morning. Well, my co-host is not here yet this morning. That's kind of frustrating because I thought perhaps that she might be here. You may remember who my co-host was from the previous year, and she will be here again perhaps a little bit later, and we'll discuss that. Let's see if this, there you go. That's me. I'm Ross Conran, past district governor. There are a lot of those, of which I am the most. No, I'm not the most recent, am I? Lodi, of course, is the past district governor-elect. He will soon take on that role, as we all do eventually, and that's a good thing. Well, I'd like to kind of get you on task here and on focus this morning with where we're at, because we are indeed discussing today the business of water. An interesting and unique topic, one which is a little bit difficult to speak to if you're not in the business of water, but we'll talk about the business of water at some point. And we might even get there. Where am I at? Let's see. Okay. First, a little bit of background information for you. And a couple of years ago, I indicated to you that I had written a book, and the book, of course, is the book that's going to change the world. One entitled Drink the Water. This may or may not have been something that you would have thought of on your own, but if you have not been here when you saw this, I need to review this for you so that you can be caught up, okay? And because it'll take up some time. The book, of course, is of 11 chapters. The first one talks about ignorance and explains to you that the fact that you don't know that there are millions of people without water doesn't change the fact that there are millions of people without clean water. And so that just kind of sort of an obvious thing. The Zeigarnik effect, if I can keep up with this thing, the Zeigarnik effect in chapter 2, I put that in there because it sounded like it was going to be a good academic study. I'm not sure what it is, but it has something to do with memory somehow or other, and you can look it up. I think it explains that we don't know what's going on because we're not aware of what's, no, it's not that. Anyway, and then on chapter 3, we went on to donor fatigue, and just a minute here. My copy has, there, had a pop-up, not nice. One of the problems we have, and most organizations that are nonprofits have, is that we say the same thing all the time. And so people get fatigued with the message. So we try to fluff up the message a little bit, change it, look at it from a different direction, so we don't have to deal with this donor fatigue. Because the fact that we needed money last year and got it does not relieve us of the fact that we need money this year and haven't got it. So don't be fatigued by that. Then we talk about the thirst mechanism. Why do people drink bad water, for heaven's sakes? What is wrong with them? And then the good advice is to drink the water. No, the good advice is that commonly that you're not supposed to drink the water. And that's not really good advice. That's bad advice. So we're going to talk about the good advice. And first of all, you have to know what's wrong with the water. And that was chapter 6. Then we get to chapter 7, and we explain scientifically what's wrong with the water. And there are two things, the cms and the no-cms. Okay? You can figure that out for yourself, what a cm is and what a no-cm would be. The no-cms are probably worse than the cms because you can't see them. Then we get into waterborne illness and the politics of water. Is a waterborne illness a good thing or a bad thing? How many have had a waterborne illness? Oh, good for you. You're my kind of people. I like you. Okay? And you'll be able to answer that question. And then chapter 10, of course, which is my advice to everybody, and the source of the book anyway, which is to drink the water. When you go across the world and wherever you are in these third world nations, don't avoid the water. Drink it. It's really important. It's good for you. Well, not health-wise, but from the standpoint of those people who just raised their hands, they survived. They are the survivors. That's interesting. Then we get into chapter 11, the final chapter, which is called the 10,000. These are the 10,000 parents who buried a child today. The 10,000 parents who buried a child yesterday and the 10,000 parents who will bury a child tomorrow. Kind of a serious situation when you stop to think about it. Most of these people buried a child that's under the age of 5. And that child died of a preventable waterborne illness, probably diarrhea or the effects of it. 10,000 parents today bury a child. Kind of a sobering thought when we get around to it. Well, my book, as I tried to get to you last year, is not doing too well. I haven't found a publisher yet, and I've got an awful lot of rejections in the larder now about the possibility of what's going to happen with this thing. And so I began to cast around for some options that might be able to be helpful, because you see the published world is getting, it's huge. Even though we're going to paperless world, just to get anything in print, it's very, very difficult because there's just so many options out there. So I tried to hit some of the popular genres and rewrote the book. And the first one was to put it in a dummy series, Drinking Water for Thirst. That didn't go well at all. I couldn't find anybody who was interested in that. Then I decided, well, perhaps I might want to go into the romance genre. No luck there at all. I wrote a kind of a steamy novel, and no, nothing there. And I thought, well, okay, a lot of people like the spy stuff, so I rewrote it as a spy war thing. No, nothing there, and I took on the rank of admiral for that one. It still didn't work. And then, well, how about maybe just a tourist publication? And I so far have had no luck whatsoever. And so my Drink the Water theme is kind of a flat object right now. And trying to combine that with this year's theme of the business of water, I come up with this. That doesn't work. I couldn't come up with anything to talk about how you drink the business of water. So I went back again and started looking at some of the options, and I realized, well, hey, maybe in the trade pubs, maybe something along the line of a monthly print journal, magazine sort of thingy. So I started looking at what's available out there, and thought, well, hey, maybe, you know, how about we take a look at perhaps what a trade pub might look like. They're so heavy on artwork that, you know, if this doesn't do it for you, then maybe this version would. But so much artwork, and it's just so difficult. I thought that's not going to work at all. So I went back and looked at the options again, and realized that out there, there's this whole genre of textbooks. And those of you who have had a college textbook know that they sell for a lot of money, like $150, $180. That's a common price. And so maybe if I put out a nice little a book like this, it sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, it's got a great title, got a wonderful cover to it, and it's a basic text. And I use my MA to give it a little bit of flavor out there. I could have invented a PhD, I suppose, but I got thinking about that. Mostly college courses the book is written by the professor you're taking it from, because they got a lock on the college bookstore. And so getting into that business is just not going to work at all, and I was confused. Not knowing what to do next, I went back and took a look again at the inspiration I had about 2 o'clock in the morning. It just struck me. You've all had those kinds of inspirations, and usually, no, I won't tell you about that one. I thought, hey, nonprofit. The nonprofit sector might be where I want to go with this thing, because there's a possibility out there, and this is the one that I had. Here's the inspiration. Water exchange. Now, think about how you might be able to work that. A water exchange. Here's my plan. Okay. You take a bottle in your home, and you fill it with water. Okay. You package it up and ship it off to somebody in a third world country. They collect their water, put it in a bottle, send it back to you by mail, and you get to drink it. That would be a water exchange, right? They're drinking your water, you're drinking their water. Sort of like foreign student exchange thingy, right? They come here, we go there. It works out very well. And think now of what this is going to be in terms of some business opportunities, because this works into the business of water. Okay. What's the first thing that's going to be affected by this whole idea of the water exchange? Healthcare. Healthcare is going to be inundated by people who will need to be able to use those facilities in there. That's a great idea. And then, well, you can think about the brick and mortar sort of thing, Where would you be able to go with this? Now, this gets away from the nonprofit into the entrepreneurial sector of the world. And so you can set up this little industry, the good water shop. You know how, like, you got wine stores with wines of the world? Well, you could have waters of the world. You could sell Mexican brown, Guatemalan green, lots of things. Water from Sierra Leone, and it could be from a lot of different places in the world. It would be really exciting if you stop to think about it. What an opportunity for the third world nation to get rid of some of that stuff, to market their water. And those people who are really into it could get into the whole idea of the boutique industry. Can you think how that would work now? The little boutique waters? Wow. Just raise the price right up on those things. It would be an awesome industry, I think. But the real way, in a way that I want you to remember the responsibility that all of us have towards making sure that there's water out there for people, is to turn the whole idea upside down. And from here on out, whenever you see this, I want you to turn it upside down and think about it. You're not going to get away from it anymore. Okay. Every time you see one of these yellow W's, it's time to think about our responsibility for water. Well, now, my co-host is not here this morning. Unfortunately, she thought, as I rudely did, that we were to begin at 9 and registration was at 8:30. So she'll be along a little bit later. My co-host is the best-selling author, Eileen Conran, and I can she is a best-selling author. Those of you here last year, remember she wrote a book, she sold it? She sold 12 copies of her book here. Okay. No other publisher has ever sold 12 copies of a book in this facility here for this organization. So she's the best-selling author. This year, she hopes to become the best-selling artist. And it, again, is a reminder, much like the McDonald's, she has an artwork. We're here to present it to yourself. This is her artwork. This is a sad face. This sad face is to remind you that there are sad children all over the world who are sad because they don't have clean water for themselves or their families. And so, if you were to hang this in your home, along with this reminder you see, you'd be able to remember through the Zeigarnik effect that we have a responsibility. And this is your reminder for responsibility. Eileen will be selling these, again, at $10 a piece to raise $120 for water filters. And those of you who would like, there are only 12 copies. That's it, 12 for the world, plus the original that she's retaining. And you'll be welcome to buy them when she shows up here. And she has one reminder, and this was the words that she was to bring to you today. While we think about the water exchange and all the fun of it, drink the water is an important process, but this is her words. People need clean water. And indeed they do, and it's us who is responsible for that. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Kayla Denson from the Coopersville Interclub. The book Bright Lights, No City is about a model of entrepreneurialism in one country. Our first speaker became his brother's partner, so the story could be shared, and he's here today to spark conversation about the business of water. Please give a hearty welcome for well-known author Max Alexander.
Thank you. Thanks, Kayla. Thank you all for being here. It's a great pleasure always to come back to my hometown. I come from a huge Catholic family, and generally takes about a week to see all my cousins here. And I told my publisher if all my cousins alone bought my book, I'd have a bestseller. So I'm still working on that. But fortunately, Kai Risdall on NPR told all of his listeners to read my book, and that helped. So who am I? I'm a writer. I'm a journalist, a native of Grand Rapids. I'm not a water expert. I figured I was invited here today to make the real experts who are speaking look even more brilliant by comparison. All I can really tell you about is what I've seen and learned on the ground over a few years of living and working in Ghana, West Africa, writing my latest book, which is available for sale here as well. So to start, I'd like to introduce you to a friend of mine. His name is Hayford Ate, and he's a cocoa farmer in the village of Sakwenya in central Ghana. Now, Sakwenya is not on a road, not even for what passes for roads in Ghana. To get to Sakwenya, to get to Hayford's village, you need to hike about 20 minutes down a footpath and cross the stream, which is bridged by floating logs here. This is how Hayford gets to his house every day. Hayford and his neighbors live in mud huts with no electricity, no running water, unless you count the stream, which is their real only source of drinking water, outside of rain barrels like this. This is a fairly typical rain collection system in Ghana. They've got a concrete container, and they've got split bamboo gutters running down from the roofs of their huts. And during the rainy season, that's the best water they can get, and it's actually very good water to drink compared to the muddy stream. In the wet season, the citizens of Sequania, mostly women and children, because the men are out tending their cocoa trees and their little corn plots, carry water from that stream in buckets on their heads up to their houses. But in the dry season, that stream goes down to a trickle. And to get to the water then, they have to dig down into the mud, kind of like I remember when we were kids at Lake Michigan, digging down on the beach to get to the water. And in fact, in Ghana, digging down to the water is mostly the work of children. These kids here are wearing a traditional makeup at a Sunday church service near Sequania. So kids have to go down and dig through that mud to get their drinking water. Now, World Health experts will tell you, and I'm sure a lot of you know this, that drinking water like that stream in Sequania is a leading cause of childhood diarrhea in the developing world, which is in turn the leading cause of death of children in the developing world. Now, I have no reason to doubt their macro-level research on that, and yet, when you hike into Sequania, ford the stream, spend a few days staying in Hayford's house, drinking the water from the stream, as I have many times, you get a little bit of a different picture. Ask Hayford, how many children in your village have had to go to the nearest health clinic, which is a half-an-hour bicycle ride away, with diarrhea in the past year? And he'll say, none. Okay, ask him how many children in the past 2 years have gone to the health clinic with diarrhea. He says 0. In short, despite the broader concerns of the World Health Organization, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and countless other extremely competent aid organizations, diarrhea is simply not a problem in Sequania. They don't think about it. Now, make no mistake, the citizens of Sequania could learn to love running water like everybody else in the world, or at least a properly drilled communal well like this village nearby has. But until running water happens, the people of Sequania have a much more prosaic complaint about their drinking water. It tastes bad, says Hayford, and it looks cloudy. In short, his water concerns are aesthetic. The same reason that we Americans spend billions of dollars every year treating our perfectly safe drinking water that we've already spent billions of dollars in taxes to treat at the municipal level. We just don't like the way it looks or tastes. I think that distinction is important because often people in the developing world are not worried about the things we think they should be. Okay, that's important. They're not worried about what we think they should be. And I think one reason for that is the very well-meaning instinct to donate, to give things to people. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. It's human instinct. We have a generosity and we want to help others. And all of you in this room are involved in one degree or another in that instinct. But on another level, giving things away to people is kind of a detached form of concern. And what I mean by that is free is everyone's favorite price. So Ghanaians in villages will take anything that someone wants to give them for free. It's free. Why not? But if you want to learn what really motivates people who live on $1 a day, you need to find out what they'll spend a day's pay on. And that's what my brother Whit is doing with his for-profit startup business in Ghana, which is the subject of my book. Here's my brother talking to another villager. He listens to people like this villager, like Hayford, talks to them about what they need, what they want, what they will pull out their seedy notes and spend money on. Hayford, in fact, is the first of Burroughs' hundreds of local agents all around the center of Ghana who supplement their farming income by talking to their villagers, thinking of products they need, and selling them to them, such as batteries, portable lights, things they need where they have no electricity. Here is Hayford making a delivery of batteries to one of his customers. Now, since Burrough isn't giving anything away for free, it's really important to get those market signals right. Ask Ghanaian villagers to spend a few bucks a month on a water treatment that stops diarrhea, and they'll say, huh? Why would we want that? We don't have any diarrhea. But ask them to buy a water treatment that makes their water clear and taste better. And by the way, it also gets rid of those no-see-ums, which they don't really care about, but we do. And you might make a sale, because that's what they really want. They want water that tastes good and is clear. Now, sales are important for any business, of course, but I think in this case what's even more important is engaging the world's lowest income citizens as customers and not pitying them as victims. On the ground in Ghana, this is magical to watch. When my brother and I pull into a town in the Burrough truck, we get mobbed. They surround us. Customers routinely hug my brother. They laugh, they dance, although to be fair, Ghanaians pretty much always dance. Children chase the Burrough truck like it's the ice cream man. And they do all of this while unrolling banknotes from scarves and handkerchiefs. Ghanaians are great savers. Ghanaians have a lot of money saved up. And if there's something they want to buy, they will spend that money. Now, I won't kid you, it hasn't been easy for my brother. He's been there for 4 years, and believe me, sometimes being an entrepreneur in the developing world is about counting coins at the end of the day. And these Ghanaian coins are not worth very much. During nearly 4 years on the ground, Burrough and my brother have been forced to pivot away from some ideas they thought initially might be really good, sounded good on paper, but didn't work out quite so well. For example, his first idea was to provide a rechargeable battery in an exchange service where you paid a monthly fee of about $1, and in return you'd get unlimited exchanges on a rechargeable, high-quality battery to use in your flashlight or your radio, whatever you needed. He figured out that it would be a savings, a tremendous savings over the usual battery that people in Ghana use, which is a low-quality, non-alkaline carbon zinc battery that leaks, ruins devices, and ends up getting thrown on the road, and then children put them in their mouths. So despite what this battery says, I guarantee you it's not a super quality battery. So this was the competition, and my brother knew he had a better solution for less money. But despite on paper that working out, it didn't work out that way in the villages. It turns out that income in rural Ghana is highly seasonal, okay? It's based on rainfall patterns, crop harvests, the local market price for produce. Sometimes people have a lot of money, relatively speaking, of course. Sometimes they have no money. To ask people to pay a fee every month to get unlimited battery use was just too much for some people. They didn't have that money. They have a lot of pride, too, and a lot of people didn't want to admit that they didn't have the dollar that month. So instead of being embarrassed about not having the dollar, they just wouldn't sign on. The example would be like, probably everybody in this room understands that if you went down to your bank on Monday and wrote a check to pay off your mortgage, you would save a lot of money over the next 20 or 30 years, right? You wouldn't be paying all that interest. But I'm guessing not many of you are going to be doing that on Monday because you probably don't have all that money to pay off your mortgage. That's why you have a mortgage. Well, it works the same way in Ghana on a much smaller level. So while you and I would gladly go into Home Depot and buy the 48-pack of batteries to save money, to a Ghanaian, that would be like paying off the mortgage, okay? They just don't have that much money, even though they know it's going to save them money. So my brother had to come up with a different plan. He came up with a pay-per-use plan so that customers, when they had money, could rent a battery one at a time, pay a small deposit so that we could get it back because it was rechargeable. And under the system, customers could choose when to use the batteries and only get the batteries when they could afford it. And guess what? Business started to take off. Now, this was not knowledge that my brother could learn from Seattle or London or Grand Rapids. He had to be on the ground in Ghana, talking to these customers, figuring out what they needed and how their cash flow worked. He had to pay attention to the market signals to make it work. Some people argue that my brother and people like him shouldn't be trying to make money off of the world's poorest people. But why not? In my visits with farmers in some of the world's most remote places, I'm talking Ghana's Kwaku Plateau, I'm talking rice paddies in Guangxi province, China, near the Vietnamese border, really remote places where I travel. Conversations are regularly interrupted by the ringing of a cell phone in a farmer's pocket, okay? I think it's safe to say that in countries where people are still living one baby step away from feudalism, the cell phone has revolutionized life far more than any political revolution. Okay, in Ghana right now, cell phone penetration is 80%. In China, there are now 1 billion cell phones. That's approaching 100% penetration. Basically, the only people in China now who don't have cell phones are babies. And they're probably going to have them soon, too. So these people love their cell phones because they're never going to have landlines. It's just not going to happen. This is their communication with the world. Now, the last time I checked, every single cell phone maker is a for-profit company. I don't know any nonprofits making cell phones or any nonprofit carriers. And what's wrong with that? I mean, I don't see anything wrong with that. As long as there's competition and fair pricing, I know that people in China and Ghana and other countries in the world don't find anything wrong with it. Try to take away their cell phone and you're going to have a fight on your hands. So I think the idea that we shouldn't be making money off poor people can be exaggerated. Should we not be taking advantage of poor people? Certainly. But there's a lot of services that can be offered in a for-profit model, and I think the cell phone is a perfect one of them. Now, cell phones in a place like Ghana, where half the population lives off the grid, come with a big headache. How do you charge your phone? You have no electricity. Well, they have all sorts of crazy ways of doing it. One method is to give your phone to a bush taxi driver. These yellow finned cars are all taxis. They're all over Ghana. And you give it to a bush taxi driver, and he'll take your phone into a larger village like this, where there is electricity. He'll charge your phone and bring it back the next day and charge you 30 cents for that, which in Ghana is a fair amount of money. And you lose your phone for a day. And you may never see it again, by the way, either, depending on the honesty of the taxi driver. So that's not an ideal solution. Another solution is if you're lucky and you live in a village where somebody has a generator, they've maybe set up a little charging station here. And again, they're going to charge you 30 cents, probably, and you're going to lose your phone for a couple hours while the motor's running away and it's charging your phone. So again, it's a solution. It's better than giving it to a taxi driver. Still not a great solution. Well, my brother came up with an even better idea. For $3, he sells this portable battery charger. It holds 4 AA batteries. It's got a cord that connects to any type of cell phone, every kind of plug you can imagine. You can charge your phone while you're working. Okay, this woman is cooking dinner for her family while charging her phone and talking on it. The cost is about 20 cents per charge, so it's less than what you'd pay to send it away, and you never lose your phone. It's always with you. So this was clearly a much better solution, and I got to tell you, this thing is just flying off the shelves in Ghana. People love it. Now, the challenge here went beyond engaging Burroughs customers to figure out what they needed to charge their cell phones. My brother and I had to go to China several times and develop relationships with manufacturers to get these things made properly. Because one challenge we had, in Africa, as many of you know, there is just an unbelievable variety of cell phones. Most of them are cheap. Many of them are counterfeit knockoffs. Many of them don't work very well. And to get a charger that would really work with all of them took a lot of engineering on the Chinese side. No World Bank study could have prepared us for the iFui. That was one of my favorite phones in Ghana. And I got to tell you, if any of your kids get one of those under the Christmas tree this year, they're going to be really disappointed. If they were expecting an iPhone, that's not going to cut it. So it took a lot of work to figure this stuff out. Now, I don't mean to minimize the essential work of charitable aid groups and nonprofits around the world. In fact, I see the work they do firsthand. My brother's wife, Shelley Sundberg, is a senior program officer at the Gates Foundation. She flies all over the world, doling out millions of dollars in grants for nutritional aid programs. She does a fantastic job. She loves Africa even more than my brother. Groups like the Gates Foundation are necessarily top-down. When you're spending billions of dollars all over the world trying to eradicate polio, cure malaria, you need accountability, strict practice management to avoid waste and corruption, okay? That's a given. But there is a parallel path down on the ground that's bottom up and rooted in entrepreneurship. And I think we should recognize the benefits and the limits of both systems when we're trying to help people in the developing world. My brother won't ever solve the huge intractable problems of the developing world. Burrough will never wire remote villages to the grid, or bring tap water and sewer lines to these people, or transparent government. He'll never eradicate polio, and I guarantee you my brother, who actually has malaria today over there, will not invent a malaria vaccine. It's just beyond him. On the other hand, ventures like my brother's just might be able to deliver a malaria vaccine faster and more cheaply than the Gates Foundation, because he's on the ground. He knows how to get to these villages. So you see, there's a need for both. Let Bill Gates come up with the malaria vaccine, and my brother will get it to these people. Meanwhile, my brother is just trying to make life a little bit better right now for people who don't have a Radio Shack or a Home Depot in their neighborhood. If Burrough can eliminate a pain point in people's lives like foul-tasting water or a dead cell phone, those at the bottom of the economic pyramid will gladly pay. And that's an amazing thing we've learned. As I said earlier, it's amazing to see that people in Ghana, we look at them and we say, these people are really poor. And of course they are by our standards. But they don't think of themselves that way. People save money there, and they will spend it for something that they think will make their families better. Along the way, my brother is dignifying these people, as I mentioned, as members of modern society while providing jobs, both full and part-time, for hundreds of Ghanaians. He has all these employees now working for him who have learned new skills that they never had before. So he's been doing business in Ghana for more than 4 years. I spent 2 years there. And one of the things that I learned in my 2 years there was that every citizen of the world, no matter how poor, aspires to do better and aspires a better life for their children. Ghanaians who live in remote off-grid villages might sleep in mud huts, but they are not cavemen. They've seen TVs and computers. They know what they are. They can't afford them, but they know what they are. They own cell phones, as I mentioned. They look up at the night sky and they see satellites crossing through the sky, blinking, and they know what they are. And believe me, in non-electrified areas of Ghana, you see a lot of lights in the sky at night. They know what those satellites are. They look up at the moon at night and they know that man has walked on the moon. They're not cavemen. So, to engage these modern people as modern customers, you need to offer them the promise of modern life. I think the secret to what my brother is doing is that every product and service he offers allows his customers to aspire to that better life, that modern life that they know about. Any product that implies, well, you know, we would never use this in Grand Rapids, but for you cave people, it'll be a big improvement. That just won't work. He wants stuff that's going to make them feel like they live in Grand Rapids, more or less. Granted, that's a big challenge. I just want to close by adding that in helping the world's poorest citizens to aspire to a better life, we can meet our own aspirations as well. My brother Whit had worked for aid organizations and nonprofits throughout West Africa after college. Then he came back to the US, went on to a successful career at Microsoft. Then he left Microsoft, founded the board game Cranium. After selling Cranium in 2008, he decided to go back to Africa and make a difference, this time using his business and entrepreneurial skills. He's not alone. Every summer, Whit's company pairs interns from American and Ghanaian universities to collaborate on new business initiatives. Some of his students have already launched their own new businesses in Ghana. The Peace Corps actually began in Ghana in 1961. Maybe some of you have served in the Peace Corps. I figure what better country to spearhead a new initiative. I like to think of it as the Briefcase Corps of young entrepreneurs bent on engaging the developing world. Some of these companies will do well, maybe even very well. Others, maybe even my brothers, will fail. That's the nature of entrepreneurship. But until somebody in Seattle or even Grand Rapids or London or Accra figures out how to get running water and electricity to Sequania, and I'm not really holding my breath on that, I think the smart money is on adventurous developing world business startups. That's what I know, and that's really all I can tell you. Thank you. Thanks.
Good morning. I am Sandra Lamarcha from Monumental Interact Club. In cahoots, to collude, conspire, cooperate, join forces, Rotary is all about collaboration. The next two speakers will share their journey to improve lives in Nicaragua. Please join me in welcoming Candy Neff and Rudy Ado of Gaylord, Michigan.
Before we start, Ross, I got an idea for your next book, so you can sell 100 copies next year.
Great.
Use the focus of pain and prayer. I'm one of the victims of bad water in the Dominican Republic. And for 24 hours, I basically stayed in a little private room in pain and prayer. Pain was real, and prayer hoping it would pass. So it works. Before we get into our grant in Nicaragua and what we're doing over there, I want to touch on networking. So your Rotary Club does not make the same mistake that our Rotary Club made for many years. Prior to 2000, many people in our Rotary Club had the drive to do something with a third world country. They didn't know what. They didn't know who to contact. They didn't know where a network is. They just sat there periodically and talked. We want to do something, but we don't know how to get started. And finally, we found out that it was through a phone call, a simple phone call, that the Mennonite Church, a network in northern Indiana, has a network in the Dominican Republic where they do medical and building projects. It took a phone call from Gaylord to Archibald, I think it's Indiana or Ohio, and the following November, we had 22 Rotarians that were met in Santo Domingo, had travel up to the mountains and worked there. And just last February 4th, we finished our 15th trip. That's one option. Another option, and you'll hear in just a minute, right now we've partnered with the Catholic Diocese in Gaylord for a water project in Nicaragua. When Katrina hit, we worked through the Baptist network out of Texas to go send Rotarians down to that coast and work. We're currently involved in South Dakota on Native American reservations, the Pine Ridge and Crow Creek. And that's through the Congregational Church system of Northern Michigan. My point is, there's no excuse not to get involved, and it's so simple, absolutely so simple. All that you have to do is contact some faith-based organization, because all of these organizations, through their ministry, their whole belief system, they're networked somewhere in a third world country. And it simply takes a phone call, and they're willing to accept you, and you can work there as a Rotarian. So, talk about networking.
Well, I'm Candy Neff, and I'm the Director of Communications at the Diocese in Gaylord. But I also serve on a committee for what we call our Hermanamiento with the Diocese of Matagalpa, Nicaragua. And that's a sister relationship that we maintain with the Diocese of Matagalpa. It was established in 2004, and in 2006, we started making some medical trips, medical missions. The whole idea of our Hermanamiento, our partnership, is that it is a grassroots effort. It is a partnership that we work with, determining between the two of us what helps each other. It's a message in solidarity. It's an effort together to determine how we help each other. Each one has something to give to the other. We often think that we're the rich neighbor and we can give things, but it's more important that it's a group of solidarity. We work together. We choose things together. And so one of the efforts that we had going was the medical missions. And we had local doctors who took people to Nicaragua. Rudy at one point was one of them, and still is actually. And in 2006, we had doctors going down. We've made about 18 of those medical missions down to Nicaragua. And one of the things we learned right away within the first trip or two was that we can treat parasites there all day long. We can give them medication, and they're going to be fine for a little while. But unless they have clean water, unless we actually attack the root of the problem, we're just putting a Band-Aid on a very serious problem. And so one of the doctors even told us when he came back, he said, you know, it's very odd. I've been in a lot of places, he said, but I can actually feel the parasites moving in the children's stomachs. When I put my hands on their stomach, I can feel the parasites moving in there. And that's sad and scary and very frustrating. So we knew that we had to go about working with the Diocese of Matagalpa to come up with some way to get clean water to them. But we didn't know how to do that. And we talked about water filters, and we looked at BioCN filters, but we still didn't know how to do it. And we looked at digging wells, but we didn't really have the expertise to do that. And we have international agencies we work with there, too. It wasn't until we got partnered with our Gaylord Rotary Club that we were actually able to get it done. I can't tell you, we saw a flood of opportunity with the Gaylord Rotary, and I cannot tell you how grateful we are for that. So we can treat, but without treating it, one of the doctors came back and said that if we could treat the people with clean water, give them clean water, we could eliminate 30 to 50% of the diseases that we were seeing. And we were able to do that with the Gaylord Rotary Club. Rudy's going to talk a little bit more about how we did that and how we've begun to do that. We actually delivered the first 300 filters this past month in Matagalpa. There's some pictures out there you can see as well. But I just wanted you to know that for us, partnering with Gaylord Rotary has been an incredible opportunity, a flood of opportunity, and we are very grateful.
The diocesan bishop from Gaylord came to our Rotary Club one time to find out what Rotary is all about, and I'm pretty sure he left with a massive headache because I'm the guy that quizzed him as if he was on the witness stand. I wanted to know if there was non-potable water, what was the depth of the aquifer, is it dry, do we need to capture rainwater? I had all these questions and he had no answers. And so I started going on these medical trips. And there is potable water all over the place, or not potable, but non-potable water all over the place because you're up in the mountains in Nicaragua. A committee was formed, a committee of Gaylord Rotarians, Matagalpa Rotarians, diocesan employees from Gaylord and Matagalpa. And that committee really took the bull by the horns. First, we needed demographic data, and that was their responsibility, and it took them a year. And that data produced that we could possibly provide good water to 47 communities in the mountainous area around Matagalpa, which meant 2,767 families would have good water, 2,233 children. And so we used that and began to develop a grant. And I have to admit that, I mean, I was a grant writer, and that was very challenging, not only because of the communication issues and trying to go back and forth with a third world country, but trying to resolve challenges that I want to talk about. Our grant was based on sustainability. That's where we started. And we see sustainability as an issue of education, an issue of local support, an issue of providing real-time support if a question comes up, and then ongoing filter maintenance, or there are certain parts of every filter that has a limited lifespan. And you'll hear in a minute the filter that we chose, one part of it needs to be replaced roughly every 2 years. So that's part of the sustainability part. We looked at the bio sand filter from Rotary, and that was our initial thought where we were going to go. And the reason was that the US, number one, it's a very good filter, and number two, the United States Navy will deliver those filters anywhere in the world where they have a port of call. In other words, where our Navy ships go into their ports. Well, there's a problem, and that is Nicaragua and the United States have a very strained relationship, and our Navy's not welcome there. So that eliminated that. So we kept digging. And in digging, we found that in Honduras, which is a neighboring country, a bordering country, there's a distribution center for the rotary filter. So we figured, oh, we're all set. And then the Rotary Club in Matagalpa said, well, we have another problem. The problem is their government is going to charge an extremely high tax to bring those into the country, and we have some question whether whatever amount finally comes into the country will actually end up in Matagalpa, or some may fall off the truck, or we'll call it thievery, okay? So we may not get everything we bought. So then we continued to brainstorm, and we thought, okay, what kind of filter is produced in country that we can get that has the same filtering abilities as the Rotary biosand filter? And that was a job for Matagalpa Rotary. And they went out and they did the research, and they came back with a filter called the Filtron filter. It's produced in San Marcos, Nicaragua. I then got on the internet and began to do a study, and I found a study out of Duke University that was comparing the Filtron to the rotary filter, and filtering capabilities were basically equal. They're both high quality. The only difference is that the Filtron has a slightly lower filtration rate. It produces 3 liters an hour, so that's slower than the rotary filter. But we made the choice to go with them. And when looking at the filter, the part that needs replacement every couple years is ceramic, and it has a silver coat on it, a silver paint-like. And my concern, and if you look at our display out here by the fireplace, the top 2 pictures on the Matagalpa part, Nicaragua part, you'll see the roads that we travel as a medical team, where we're going. They're very rough, they're very remote. My concern is that these filters would break. They tried to assure me that they won't. They're really packed well, and I was so skeptical that we finally negotiated, in whatever quantity of filter we purchase, they would add an additional 5% to that order of this ceramic piece to cover breakage. Well, so far none have broke, so we're doing okay. Sustainability, as I indicated, education, local support, real-time filter support, and then replacement. In our grant, we saw it being important to provide local trainers in each community, to identify 2 people in each community that are considered by that community to be leaders within the community. So when these people speak, others will listen. They're called brigadistas. We also needed somebody to train the brigadistas. And so we had to employ somebody contractually. So our grant hires an individual for 12 to 16 months that was trained by the Filtron Filter Corporation, who then accepted responsibility of getting the filters from Matagalpa into these villages, training the brigadistas, and then doing follow-up work. The training is important because, and the ongoing support is important, because we identified a study from Peru, from a Christian organization that put filters into a village, and when the filters were in, there was 85% usage of the filters. And 5 weeks later, that dropped to 34%. People weren't using them. And then they found out that if they go back in several more times to reinforce the training and the importance of the use of using clean water, that went back up and remains at about 84%. So we wanted brigadistas in the community. We wanted somebody supporting the brigadistas. And also, these villages are so remote that if somebody had a question about the filter, a problem, or anything, it does no good to wait 2 weeks, 4 weeks, or 6 months for somebody to finally get back up to that part of the mountain. Rather, they can go to the little hut next door and talk to Manuel or whomever, and they can get the problem resolved right away. So local support was critical. Also, in Nicaragua, when you look at the cities, the literacy rate is very high. When you go into the remote areas of the country, the literacy rate is very low. And you don't know who knows what and who can read. So even though we provide written material about the filter, it was important to have that local contact there to help, because you don't know who can read and who can't. In the training, our grant was approved last summer. The contractual person was hired toward the end of the summer. And then the Matagalpa Rotary and Rotary Club and diocesan employees, they contacted the Ministry of Health and the Ministry of Education, and in those communities that had U.S. Peace Corps workers, those Peace Corps workers. And they worked out an educational component for the children. And so from roughly the fall up till, I think it was January 6th, there was no filters purchased. And it was all education of the children, talking about hygiene, the importance of clean water, etc., washing your hands when you come out of the outhouse, etc. At the same time, the brigadistas are meeting with the adults in the community, sharing that same information. Mid-January, the 1,300 filters were purchased. The first 300 were delivered the end of the month, and I think it was February 6th or 8th, roughly. The distribution began, and again, you'll see pictures out there on the board of distributing the filters. Now we had another challenge, one more challenge. I read on the internet, I was told by the Filtron Corporation personally, that in the Latin culture, people value things in relation to the costs that they pay. Now that's actually a dollar cost, or it's sweat equity costs, but that's how they value things. So if they pay a little something for it, there's value to the object. But if you just give them something, it has the value of 0 and may not be used. So that created a challenge. Well, if we give you a filter, what's the value of it to you based on your culture? So we came up with the idea that we would charge a fee, a rental fee. The rental fee for this filter would be equal to the amount that it would cost in 2 years to replace that ceramic dish. Therefore, part of the sustainability part. When you translate that to our dollars, it's $11 over a 2-year period. But a lot of these villages are so poor Some of them can save the $11. Many of them may be able to save a nickel in 2 years toward that $11. So the Diocese of Gaylord came back up and they says, well, we have a deal. What we'll do is any farmer that can't afford the $11 over the 2-year period, they'll make up the difference through charitable donations. So again, it adds to the sustainability part of the whole project. Our goals right now are to have all 1,300 filters installed by midsummer. I'm hoping we achieve that because the Latin countries, they work slightly on a different time frame than us. We're sort of governed by calendars and watches, and they're governed by relationships. So things don't always happen as scheduled. So that's the grant in a nutshell.
One of the things I can tell you from our experience is that we know that this is something that they value and that they want. As Mr. Alexander mentioned a little while ago, he said it's important not to tell people what they need in other countries. And we worked very hard to work together. And we worked very hard for them to help us determine how we can help them. It really is kind of a symbiotic relationship. And one of the ways we can tell that people really do want this is that some of those people who got those filters last month walked more than 4 hours to pick one up, and 4 hours. And they carried it back by hand. And that was a concern, too, when Rudy talked about breaking them. As we watched them go up the hill, it's like, oh, I don't know if that's going to get there safely. But they did. They apparently did. And that's pretty exciting. As we close, I want to first of all, or second of all, whatever, say thank you very much for allowing us to be here today. You know, the faith-based organizations and the Rotary clubs have a similar mandate, and that is to reach out to those in need, to help serve those in need. There are lots of ways we can work together. I can't tell you how grateful we are for the Rotary. I can't tell you how grateful the people of Matagalpa are for the Rotary clubs, not only our local Gaylord Rotary, but all of you who had a part in that in helping us with those grants. That has made a tremendous difference in the lives. I want to thank you for opening the floodgates to change the world. Thank you very much.
I also want to compliment the Diocese of Gaylord. If you've written grants before with RI, you know that they do not fund personnel, but they fund programs. And I mentioned that we were hiring a technician for a year. Well, Matagalpa Rotary put together a budget where determining how much the wages would be, the gas or the diesel fuel to get into these various communities, paying a local farmer a couple bucks to allow you to stay at his or her farm for the night or the week and feed that person, et cetera. And when you translate that budget into our dollars, it came to $4,011 for a whole year. So it's not a lot of money. But the Diocese of Gaylord also, they're paying 100% of those costs. And I would invite any of you, we are active right now, Nicaragua, which is medical and water, Dominican, which is building and was water. We finished a project there with water in El Rosario, but it's building and repair in South Dakota. You are invited to come with us. Out at the display, I have my name, email, and phone number, and the approximate times of the year we go on any of these trips. 4 years ago, Manistee began to go with us, and now they're just part of us. They always go. We always take high school students and college students with us because we want to plant the seed of service and plant the seed of Rotary in these young men and women. And our club helps offset some of the costs for the students so they can go. So you can bring students, and you're all invited. Thank you.
Good morning, I'm Haley Knight from Muskegon Interclub. Bethany Christian is a global nonprofit organization caring for orphans and vulnerable children on 5 continents and the largest adoption agency in the United States. Recently, you may have seen the segment of Miranda on Wood TV about One Village. Ron Lubbers is here to tell us the importance of safe water in their ministry. Please join me in welcoming Mr. John Lubbers.
Thank you very much for having me here. My name is Ron Lubbers, and I'm the evil twin of Ron Lubber, who couldn't make it here this morning. I have another complaint, too, is next time if I'm here, I would like to be the first on the agenda, because I never want to follow Ross the Entertainer again. But anyway, we appreciate very much your being here and my participating in this. We are one of those faith-based organizations that Don was talking about, and we are not affiliated with any church denomination, but we are unbashfully Christian. We have a table out there. Two ladies are manning that table. Irma is one, and Jennifer is another lady. And Jennifer has just returned from Ethiopia. She returned yesterday. So if she nods off at the table, be aware that she is here under extreme conditions of her health. But Bethany is an international organization. Not many of you know that. Who's ever heard of Bethany Christian Services? Okay, good. Who thinks we're only an adoption agency? Okay. I am going to dispel that idea of the few of you who think we just do adoptions. Yes, we do adoptions. You may not know that over the last 5 years, international adoptions, and I'm the head of the international wing of Bethany. It's called Bethany Global. I mean, we're not too catchy in terms of names. Bethany Global, because we have this huge global operation. And you probably read or see about us when we have an adoption from another country into the United States. We also do domestic adoption, but we are global. We serve children and families. That's another thing. A lot of people just think we deal with children, but we deal with children in the family. We have social service programs around the world. We're in 19 different countries. You would define them as third world countries, for the most part. We are a leader in social services around the world. We're the largest U.S. adoption agency. Yes, that's true. But again, unbashful, not bashful about our core values. And if you don't have these slides in front of you, I can get you copies. So you don't have to quickly take notes or brand this on your brain what we are. But I'd like to direct you to the orange side, where our mission. We are demonstrating the love and compassion of Jesus Christ by protecting and enhancing the lives of children and families through quality social services. That is our mission. We take that very seriously. I have it tattooed on my chest so I can continually remember it, but I'm not going to show you that. Some people think we should have it branded on our forehead, but that's not the case. We started 69 years ago. I want to give you a little background to get you away from the idea that we are a U.S. entity only and that we only do adoptions. And I want to lead you into what Don and Candy have told you about working with faith-based organizations around the world and networking. Because, and by the way, we do not own orphanages. That may be a shock to you. We do not own orphanages. We have partners around the world. You referred to networking. Well, when we started very small. 2 ladies and a man started it, and that's a picture of one of the first children. They then became licensed, and we are now around the world. We're on 5 continents, and you notice the U.S. only has 1 little stick pin. We are in all those other continents, 5 of them total, and 19. We have a very large and growing presence in Africa. By the end of this year, we will be in 3 additional African countries. Trying to do intercompany adoptions? Yes. But again, in the last 5 years, those have declined 50%. So we do adoptions, but that's declining. Some other agencies have been caught very flat-footed with world changes. This world is going crazy. If you didn't know, that's not news, I assume, to all of you. Well, Russia, you may have read, closed its doors to adoption into the United States from Russia. Month and a half after that, 2 adoption agencies in the United States declared bankruptcy. Why did they do that? Well, because the Obama administration did something not affecting kids at all. And I'm not here to say if it was right or wrong. It's a political deal. All of a sudden, boom. We had 5 families wanting to adopt out of Russia. One of them was literally at the airport to pick up their child. 2 of them, additional ones, had airline tickets acquired. They all 3 did get the child that they had been working years to find. The other 2, they lost money, they lost time, they lost a significant part of their heart. Bethany, in the U.S., we have 100 offices scattered around the country, 36 states. We are the largest adoption agency, but we serve many other functions in the U.S. and internationally. Now, if you're falling asleep, I am going to come to water, believe it or not. I am. This is not, I was going to say this is not a commercial. It is. Anytime we go anyplace, we are Bethany. But it's very critical, I think, that you understand that we are out there. We are boots on the ground. We are looking for partners to help kids and families. In 2012, we worked with approximately 150,000 people, often in family units, around the world and in the United States. Our vision is a child in a loving family. There's a crisis in pregnancy around the world, in child development, and they talked about bad water. Yes, fine, they have children, but in a few years they die. We have some domestic programs all kinds of them. We have a huge number. We're an $80 million organization. I mean, we're not this little podunk outfit. Excuse me, if anybody's from Podunk, I'm sorry. We're not this small agency. We have a very large footprint. Do more adoptions than anybody else. But the world of adoptions is changing and changing so fast. And we have, over the last 5 years, become one of the largest social service agencies in the world. That is an interesting definition. We're not World Vision. Okay? World Vision is a big gorilla. We're not Catholic Social Services. I just called that organization in front of Candy the big gorilla, and she said, I've never heard that before. Well, they're big operations. We're not that big, but we're different. We're different. In the United States, we have developed a program that we're transferring to the international partners. Remember that word, international partners. We're transferring the foster care program. Many countries, through the United Nations, with the Obama administration, Secretary of State, have changed how kids are taken care of in those countries. Political reasons, whatever. The United Nations is driving, I'm not here to say right or wrong, just is, driving nations to keep kids in the country. Ooh. If you've ever seen, there's a movie out called Stuck. Scary movie. It's about families who have adopted internationally. It's not a Bethany movie. It's very interesting when you see kids warehoused. How do they take care of those kids? It's really scary. We are going to send 2 of our people to Vietnam to take a look at that. There have been 20 foreign adoption agencies functioning in Vietnam. We are not one of them. There's no U.S. adoptions out of Vietnam. There's no social services performed by Bethany in country in Vietnam. But we're going there that we might do that. Vietnam is such a corrupt country. Don talked about that a little bit in Central America. You ain't seen nothing. Whole containers disappear in Vietnam. That makes international work very difficult. We have developed this foster care program, and we are sending 2 people at the request of the Chinese government to speak to them about foster care. Remember you had the little, the vision of a little beautiful Chinese girl coming off a plane in the arms of parents? Don't have that anymore. The only type of child we can adopt out of China is severe physical difficulty. Because the Chinese are now adopting internally. Brings all kinds of cultural rules that they have. There are people standing in the line to adopt certain kinds of We take care of families. We take care of kids. We have on the international scene a number of employees, but we have partners. We have, in my former business, we would call that leverage. We are one, but then we have a number under us. And those local partners we manage. I talked to last night a fellow that works for me, who's in charge of our African operations, mostly social service operations. He called me from Ghana again. We meet with ministers in charge of child welfare, Deputy Prime Minister of Swaziland, not one of the 19. Swaziland is going to come visit us in 2 weeks. We are in those countries. We are expanding our role worldwide. That's my passion, that's my drive, and that's what my boss tells me I'm supposed to do. So we're doing it. So we are boots on the ground. We're sending additional, in addition to that speaker, we're sending two people that work with me to China, whole other issue in social services. They are then going to Vietnam. Just dawned on me, there's something wrong here. Next week, I go to Knoxville, Tennessee. They're all going to foreign countries. Go to Tennessee. We've got to change that. Irma, would you make a note that I go to the foreign countries, they go to the U.S.? Thank you, Van. We have a program of linking families here with families in foreign countries. It's sort of a sister city program you may have known about. You see these signs when you drive into a city. It lists all the sister cities of the city. Grand Rapids has some around the world. We have the same thing, except it's with, in this case, we have one, Knoxville, where I'm going, and they are taking on Addis Ababa. One of the things that got us started in saying, hey, water is a big deal in social services with family. And we're in all these countries. Why don't we get involved in programs that help with the health of kids, health of family? You're going to see a clip here in just a minute that Miranda and her cameraman John did for WOTV in Guatemala that shows a family, and I think you probably have seen this in Central America, that the father's not there. They just left. The mother's in charge of the kids. The mother's got to find clean water. How does she do it? How does she keep the family healthy? Huge cost to the family. And she is in charge. That's a tough deal, and we deal with those kind of families all over the world. You want to play that, Miranda? Video?
It's a town 7,000 feet above sea level in Guatemala. It's incredibly beautiful here, vivid colors and amazing mountains. The people are warm, friendly, and loving, but many have very difficult lives. Families truly struggle. The people of Chichicastenango were hit hard with a 30-year civil war, which ended in the late 1990s. Many of the local people were the targets of the militia that went from house to house and butchered the men. As a result, approximately 70,000 widows were left in the mountain areas of Chichicastenango. This area is a farming community. Many earn a living by farming or weaving goods to be sold in the market. Most locals live on less than $2 per day. Women and children are thought of as disposable, although they do most of the work and provide for families. In Chichicastenango, up to 80% of the men are alcoholics and leave the mountains to find work on the coast. This leaves entire communities of women and vulnerable children. An amazing organization called Manos de Jesus has been working with families here in Chichicastenango, doing what they can to help meet basic needs. It's a beautiful city with beautiful people, but there are real needs here. Paint the picture for me. What is it like to live here?
A typical family has anywhere between 5 to 8 children, and they live on less than $2 a day, which is less than somebody pays for coffee in a day.
So you're with an organization, Manos de Jesus. What do they do?
Manos de Jesus comes in, we basically aim to serve widows and orphans, and we do that through a variety of different things, including feeding programs. We provide them with nutritious meals. We build widow houses. We do a variety of different projects here.
You know, are we making a difference?
I believe we are, especially through a sponsor program that we offer. These families are being changed. They're being encouraged emotionally, financially, just all around.
For years, Mano de Jesus has been providing nutritious meals 6 days a week at 3 feeding sites throughout the community. Along with the meal, these children receive physical and spiritual training. On our visit, we had the chance to visit one of the feeding sites and help serve a meal. These kids, I'm watching them, and they're not eating the food themselves. They're actually taking it and putting it into bags that they brought in. It's their way of supporting their family. They're bringing that home for everyone to share. Housing is another big issue for families in Guatemala. Manos de Jesus has developed a program that allows groups from the United States to come to Chichicastenango and build homes for widows. When teams arrive, they work together to build a 12 by 12 wooden slat home. We met up with a team from the United States led by a man from Grand Rapids, Michigan. He had led several teams on mission trips to Guatemala and loves making a difference in the lives of these families.
We get so much out of this. We get more by being here than we're giving, because you just grow spiritually from, and it changes your perspective, your life perspective. It changes you forever to see that we have so much, and there's so much that we can do to help others. And they're so appreciative and grateful and friendly, and it's just an amazing experience.
Children here in Chichicastenango are not allowed to go to school without shoes. For many, this becomes a huge barrier that keeps them out of the classroom. To remove this obstacle, Manos de Jesus has built a shoe factory that employs several people from the village. Once a child is given a pair of shoes, he or she can attend school. And for kids in this community, it's a very big deal.
Not all kids get the opportunity to go to school. It's kind of expensive for the families, and they also have to own shoes, a special kind of shoe to go to school, and so that's really hard on some families. And so the kids feel really fortunate to get to go to school, and they're really eager to learn.
Other struggles that families in Guatemala face include access to clean, safe drinking water and proper cooking areas in their homes. These are both challenges that Manos de Jesus is doing their best to help families overcome. In an effort to meet the basic needs of more families, Manos de Jesus and Bethany Christian Services have partnered together. Bethany Christian Services is a Grand Rapids-based nonprofit organization committed to protecting children and bringing hope to families worldwide. Working with Manos de Jesus, they'll be able to help more families stay together.